Hello, namaste, and welcome to the next episode of Siddhi Baat. I'm your host Pawan, and today it's a very special episode because this is the first video podcast that we are doing, and the topic is equally interesting. You and I put money in our banks, SBI, any bank, whatever, and we try to see if there's alternatives. We try to even put money in stock markets, but we are concerned when banks say the headlines come, banks are failing. So we have a problem when we look at banks in a very different way. So we have had scams like Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi taking off money from banks by not returning it. So there's a problem. So in this context, I just like to mention that we are in a it's a very important topic in these days. So to talk about it, we have a very special guest right in front of you. That is Mr. Anjaya Mande. He has completed his BTech from NIT Warangal. He is an alumnus of NIT Warangal, and he has also passed out from the University of Hyderabad, where he pursued his MA in economics. In between, he's worked in a couple of public sector companies and also a few banks, most notably Standard Chartered and another bank which I forget. So I hope it's okay. So now I'd just like to ask him what is give us a brief intro and also talk about what do you think about the situation. First, let us start off with your intro, Anjay. Over to you.
Thanks, Pawan. That was a very sweet introduction. So, yeah, as you mentioned, did a BTech from NIT Warangal, and I worked in Standard Chartered as an analyst, followed by Bank of India as a probationary officer. So, yeah, so that is Bank of India. That is one of the public sector bank. Later on, with a keen interest in economics, I moved to University of Hyderabad, where I joined in MA Economics. So, as you know, I just completed recently with MA, post graduation in economics. So, the current situation, right? Coming to our today's talk, which is Indian banking sector, past, present, and future. So, as we all of us know, the banking sector is a kind of blood circulation to the economy. Just like how the role of the blood in the human body, so the function of the bank is also very similar to the running of the operation of the economy. If you take any economy, so present the crisis, right? The COVID or Corona crisis, whatever we call, is a very deep crisis, as most of us all are noticing it and acknowledging it. Our government has already acknowledged, and international organizations have already acknowledged and identifying. So it's a we can say it's like a post World War II. It is one of the biggest economic crisis in terms of GDP growth rates across the world, the death rates, the economic other indicators. You can say the unemployment, so trade, all the businesses. Only thing is, it's not a direct war between the countries. Otherwise, it is not at all inferior to any world war, either World War One or two. Within India also, if we compare, India faced several hurdles post-independence. You take Indo-China war, or war with Pakistan, or just before the liberalization. So it's a deep crisis, we can say, the present situation.
So I'd like to ask you, in your reading, okay, in your opinion, in the present status, what is the situation of Indian banks as of today? If the what is the problems they're facing, and yeah, first of all, let's talk on that.
Yeah. So if you take the banking sector, right? Any crisis you take, either 2008 global crisis or just before liberalization, or even during the war situations, I think banks are always hit by the economic or any other crisis, because banks are the kind of moderators for the to the savers and the lenders, I mean borrowers. So banks are always hit by different kind of problems in India or over the world as well. So now presently also, if you see from 2014-15 onwards, where Raghuram Rajan took in charge, our Indian banking sector just started the cleanup. You can say this asset quality review they are doing one side, and also they are trying to open the. They are trying to display all the NPA figures, balance sheet. So kind of they are trying to do some balance sheet cleanup. This is just going to aggravate the crisis, but that's what I feel. So I'm not very skeptical about the issue, but if you see realistically, and again, there are mudra loan. The government has been aggressive in distributing the loans to different business people, especially poor and marginalized sector. That the intention is good, but the implementation and the figures, if you take, the mudra might also add to the problems of the Indian banks, and also NPAs are one side growing. So if you see, right, this present situation is definitely aggravating the already struggling banking sector.
So you mentioned the point that actually, to the contrary, it's a perception that is very different from what is going on in the world. That the bank cleanup, asset cleaning, and all this is actually going to help banks, but rather you have a very different view. What is the basis for that?
Yeah. So actually, they started with the cleanup. That is a good motive and also a good intention. But the problem was banks were already their balance sheet were not in good shape earlier. So whatever they have been accumulating, it was coming out. So it's like some operation is going on within the banking system for the good reasons, for good cause. So if you think this crisis did not happen, had the crisis did not happen, maybe in 2 or 3 years, banking sector would have been in a good condition, good shape. But what is happening? It's like some operation is going on in your body, and suddenly some other injury added. It's like some surgery is going
Yeah,
on,
yeah, yeah.
some kind of postmortem is going on. So I think you are getting it right. So now all of a sudden, without noticing what is going on, some other part is completely damaged. So now it is like, if the bank, for example, like you are already sick, and now some other disease attacking you. So it's real like you are getting into more weak and more crisis. So like that.
So, what do you think is the background for all this? What prompted this crisis in the first place? So, if you could throw some light on what is the background, what is the history? So, when we say past in the topic, we have to discuss. It's essential to know the past. So, what is your take on it?
Yeah, see, there are two parts to it, right? To the history, if we take, one is like in India, before independence, the banks were not capturing that much business. Banks were there were mostly private banks. There was no public sector bank.
Yes,
Only I think
correct.
SBI is the first public sector which started in 1955, and some other public sectors were nationalized in 69 and also in 80.
Hmm.
So even then, the business was not that much because our GDP and our economy was not expanded. Our country, the economic figures were not that great. Post liberalization,
Hmm.
after 19 or 91, 92 only, the expansion started, either economy or banking sector. So banking sector was actually enjoying the benefits of the liberalization for some period, like for 10, 15 years, you can say, from 92, 93 to maybe 2007, 8. But what happened is, at one point of time, government and banks they became very aggressive, in the sense that government was pushing banks beyond their limits in the disbursement of the loans and credit to various sector, take it infrastructure or retail lending or whatnot. All the even priority sector also, agriculture and all. So what happened is, in between, some economic sectors, especially infrastructure sector, was started facing the problem, and also other side, even agriculture sector also had some issues. and the unemployment employment was in fluctuations, and because of which the retail lending was also, the payments, the recovery rate is not that good. So all these issues impacted the banking sector in terms of mainly the recovery, in terms of the repayment of the debt. So by 2012-13, the all many of the public sector banks, many of the Indian banks, especially public sector banks, they started struggling with the NPS, non-performing assets, the bad debt, that what we call. So, but the problem was, another problem was, many banks were just hiding the this NPA figures for so many reasons, because they don't want to show them in bad light, because they might lose the public trust, and also in front of government also, government in front of government also, they might look very bad. So because of all these reasons, they were not showing. But from 14-15, eventually they started showing all the figures, and now we say most of the banks are having 10 to 12% gross NPS, and net is also like 5 to 6%. I think I may be telling lesser figure, it may be more than that. You take more public sector banks, even some of the private sector banks. Recently, Yes Bank is kind of collapsed. SBI is taking over it, and even NBFC is also facing problem. You take Sahara, DHFL, ILFS. So even they are also not getting funds from public sector banks because of trust deficit. And so the thing is, whenever economy is hit by anything, that will find a place in the bank. So when, I mean, you take anything, infrastructure project or a government any project, or public private sector project also, which are financed from the banks or NBFCs. So if they are hit, bank is directly hit. So that is how it was happening. The some other aspects we take, if we see, I mean, now the second aspect is the COVID crisis, right? So that we all of us know, it started in China, it was spreading to all the countries. So the main impact of the COVID is the lockdown. I mean, if you talk in the economic sense, the main problem is lockdown, because of which all the industries are in halted. Every industry is in halt mode. Like you take especially transportation sector, manufacturing sector, and even some, I think service sector not impacted that much. Service sector, because there are some people are doing work at home, they are relocating, so they are finding some alternative. Because service sector, especially where there is no front end of service delivery, back offices are running normally, most of the back offices. But especially where a customer is there, I mean, the front end services need to be delivered, those services are impacted. So this is the other side. On the whole, the banking sector is impacted.
So, given the the mentioned what you mentioned in the trends of what caused all this decline in the strength of the banking system in India, which is also I think a phone banking era where you would it's a slang for those who don't know that it's basically you can make a quick loan without any background check. That is called a phone banking in a very simple term. And for the viewers, I'd just like to inform you that in India, it is a very interesting thing that many small level enterprises, all of them, they try to lend more from NBFCs rather than banks because of serious details, all the forms that you have to fill. It's a big problem naturally. So people prefer NBFCs, but now NBFCs are also collapsing. So NBFCs have no alternative but to take some money from banks, which they are not allowed to. Am I correct on that when I say NBFCs are not allowed? But in these last few weeks or months, they have been trying to give some options even to NBFCs. Is that correct?
Yes, Pawan, that is right. So actually, RBI has relaxed some norms. Earlier, RBI, based on ILFS crisis, RBI has actually tightened different regulators. You take RBI, SEBI, and government also. They changed the management of that collapsed NBFCs.
Correct.
Both basically two companies. Those are ILFS, and that is infrastructure lender basically, and DHFL, that is a home loan lender.
Yeah.
So these both companies were in crisis, especially liquidity crisis, and the servicing of repayment was also in issue. So yeah, back then the regulators were tightening the norms. I think recently because of the COVID crisis, they have relaxed and they want to they are trying to pump more funds into NBFCs with lesser restrictions. And but the other problem is like now the problem is trying to the finding the right lender, right borrower is the challenge now. Finding the right customer who is sincere, who can do the business in this crisis time, in this difficult time, and who will try to repay the debt. So the finding the right customer, right borrower is a big challenge in present times.
I just like to observe, just like to show, make a point in this. Our chief economic advisor, Mr. Krishnamurthy Subramaniam, when asked about how is the situation regarding banks and all that, he gave that banks are relatively better off now than before because they have a high market capitalization ratio or something like that. He gave a ratio where he mentioned that Indian banks compared to foreign banks are having a very high ratio, which means that they're relatively safer in terms of if any default happens, they'll still have it. I think he was talking about CRAR. He was talking about the capital to risk assets ratio. So, do you think that is really the case? And I just like to add on one follow-up question, which is RBI has been reducing ever since maybe February or March. They have been consistently bringing down the repo rate to boost,
Yes.
credit. They have to and previously the trend was credit was declining. Now they wanted to increase the credit, so they reduced the repo rate. But still, there's some problem. What is the why is there? What is your diagnosis of the problem?
Yeah. Well, every time when there is a crisis, no, what I feel is I want to directly blame the government in this particular point because right, for example, now government is trying to pump in a lot of funds, whether it is recapitalization or flow of funds, which can be used for onward lending to the businesses and customers. So in that way, government is doing well. But the next cycle of the problem comes during the repayment, right? So
Correct.
now, for example, this quarter government has pumped, for example, some 5 lakhs crores of rupees, maybe like 5 trillion rupees into various banks, and some like 70 to 80% maybe disbursed to various businesses, investors, as well as retail borrowers. So banks are now, the problem is government, when they say like you try to give loans, government is aggressive on the banks, and banks will also get aggressive in terms of lending. So quality will come down because, for example, the banks have got some limited banks have limitations in terms of personnel, that is staff,
Correct.
technology,
Correct. Correct.
manpower, infrastructure. So they have so many limitations. So for example, they may be dispersing on an average, for if you take a branch, for example, SBI branch in Hyderabad city, they may be dispersing some 10 loans per day. But now government will try to push, you try to give some 20 loans per day. In that process, what essentially can happen is banks are forced to compromise on quality of the assessment. Normally banks are supposed to assess the borrower before actually proceeding for the sanction of the loan. Like they have to check the credit worthiness and the customer's background in terms of his education, his work, income. Okay, so many parameters have to be analyzed and assessed before coming to a judgment whether to give the loan or not. So now, even if you take demonetization, also banks were pushed too far, and which actually added a lot of work to banks, and they faced several issues during Jandan. You take banks, their commercial interest were always compromised because of government schemes. So even now also, even if you take Mudra and loan waivers in last 10 years, I would say the whatever the condition the presently the banks are in, for that condition government is only one of the critical reason, if not the sole reason. It is definitely main reason because governments are always one side they're pushing for aggressive lending, the other side they're also pushing the banks. Why don't you recover the loans? Why don't you
Correct. Correct.
show your balance sheet in a good shape? So in a way, what essentially happening? So the I will tell you another alternative. See, for example, now government is trying to push the lending through banks to different sectors. Instead of that, actually the state should do some subsidy distribution, because that will have direct and immediate effect in the economy. And also government knows beforehand that that will not come back, the subsidy will not come back directly. It may come back in the form of maybe taxes, or maybe some other commissions, or if economy is recovered, that's what the government target is, right? Even if everything is not recovered, that should be fine in the short run. In the long run, we can find the alternatives different, we can go with the different strategies and all. But in the short run, this whatever government is doing through Atmanirbhar is what I feel is not at all a great thing. It might in fact add more problems to the banking sector rather than solving the economic problems.
It's a very important point that you have made, that whatever politicians or the government try to do in terms of helping the banks actually end up making their matters worse. So in that aspect, I have a question and observation first, and then I'll go to the question. The Reserve Bank of India's reduction in rates has been a very, I don't think that has been a very good step, because you need to find borrowers, people who should borrow. Before borrowing, even the bankers should be having enough, will and motivation to even start lending. And I think as on date, almost 8 to 9 lakh crores, I think the figure is around 8 lakh crores of banks deposits are lying with the RBI in terms of reverse repo at around 3.25% interest rate. That means banks are not ready to lend. Even if people, you might have I think it's more of a problem where bankers' sentiment is down, so is the demand problem in our economy. That's why people are not going to take loans also. So my question is, how do you boost the bankers' sentiment? One suggestion I received somewhere, I actually read across it, is that tell all the bankers, I mean the short-term bankers and also, that we will not catch you or we will not prosecute you even if you fail to recover, because the chances of business is very difficult in these times. So what do you think is the way to boost bankers' sentiment and to bring to at least start rectifying the whole thing? How do you do it?
Yeah, I think this is the time where banks can utilize this time for internal quality improvement as well as external improvement. See, for example, this may not be directly linked. For example, Indian Railways, they have used the free time during the lockdown. They have completely utilized that time to fix the tracks of the railway lines, because they have been having a lot of problems, bugs in the railway tracks across the country, but they could never find time because of the ongoing transportation of the railways. So now they have utilized this time. So in a similar way, I think banks should improve their quality in terms of competency levels, the knowledge levels, the skill set levels of the banking staff, because I don't think now all the staff need to be deployed at the branch levels. And also they can upgrade the systems. I mean, that might require some money, but that will help them in the long run. And other thing is, no crisis will stay forever. Okay, just like in our
Correct. Yeah. That's an
normal
important point.
life, I mean in a human life, no problem will stay forever either, even no happiness for that matter, even happiness doesn't stay forever. So
Correct.
just like we crossed 1991 liberalization, we had some solution that back then we had this twin balance sheet problems, right? We were facing this current account deficit on one hand, the other side even fiscal deficit. So somehow we managed. In fact, with that problem, we found another opportunity, that is liberalization. With the liberalization, now in fact India now became fifth or sixth nominal largest GDP in the world. So now, in a similar way, 2008, even for example, even globally or within India, we have managed that. And now recently we have come out of it, in fact. But again, this one started, this COVID crisis. So
Yes.
I think now many people are talking. I mean, news media are speaking that vaccine will be very soon. It will come. So yeah, if the vaccine comes, I think the many business might get into usual mode, and slowly business might pick up. So the thing is, they have banks. They have to run as usual. They cannot close. I mean, they cannot completely close the branches. Maybe they can rationalize. They can also use this time for rationalization. Wherever there is no business, they can shift that branches to the nearby branches. They can club the branch, and they can cut down the staff. They can cut down the machines, and they can improve the quality. So see, since I worked in bank for a couple of years, in Bank of India as officer, I have seen several internal issues. To be frank, still some of the banks are using Windows XP, even
Oh,
Windows 7. Now
oh,
Microsoft has moved to Windows 10, and they have been. Yeah, this is not a joke. This is a very serious issue. Um, and still some of the public sector banks, especially, are using. They have been using this 1 GB RAM systems. So what I feel is, see, main problem I will tell you regarding NPS in banking sector is the fraudsters, the customers who will convert into fraudsters or willful defaulters. They are going ahead with the technology, with the techniques and tools, and bank is always behind. For example, today, I mean, 20 years back, the scenario was banks were not using much computers. I mean, computerization was just taking place, and so many businessmen, they were using computers, and they were making fake documents. They were taking double loans from different banks on the same property, same asset. So they were converting. They were converted into NPS later on. And if you take before 5 years, last 5 years, what is happening? Banks are now well equipped with computer and all, but the staff is not competent enough to utilize the tools, right? So many still, where I, for example, in Bank of India itself, I have worked with staff who have 5 to 10 years of experience. And even I have observed the staff from other banks within the bank in other branches. So the competency levels are still low, because since it's a public sector bank, very many staff think that once you get in bank, it's permanent. The job security is high, nobody will remove you. So they, most of them will become lethargic, and their competency levels, they don't upgrade. And also systems, because they are not competent enough, they don't observe the systems. So the essentially what is happening is, on the ground, customer or the fraudster or the willful defaulter, he is always ahead of the banker. So I think banks, it is the high time that banks have to fill this gap. Now bankers have to go ahead, and so that they can catch the fraud before they try something else, something regard to the. So banks, this is the period they can really utilize to improve the governance, to improve the competency level, even the moral. Still, the moral of the bank staff is questionable. So they can conduct some trainings, maybe virtual trainings they can conduct from headquarter level. So, and also we have global threats, right, from China. And we have been seeing the news that China and other, maybe Russia, they have been hacking the Australian government
correct, correct.
servers and their systems. So, and this problem is yet to be this one materialized in India. So even India also has got a lot of enemies, especially our neighbors Pakistan and China. Okay, so now, and that these enemies may not hit the government directly. They will hit our financial systems. They might hit our regulators. They might hit our intelligence services. So I mean, they might target anything. So I really think that our banks are not at all equipped with the requisite tools and techniques to face these kind of threats. So they are always I think we can say they are mostly reactive. They are not proactive. Most of the time they are reactive. Like they are not ahead. They are not well prepared in term whatever you take frauds, cyber threats, or whatever. So they can utilize this time for improving the quality.
I agree with that point when you say that banks are most often reactive and not proactive. That we saw in Harshad Mehta's time. Even then, we had a proactive, reactive regulator. Now, after Ketan Parekh, we have the same thing. Even now in Nirav
In Vijay
Modi,
Malia,
yeah, Vijay Mallya, I was about to mention that. So all of this seems to be a reactive response rather than a proactive stance where they scrutinize everything that they have. And
yeah, I will tell you one thing. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, go ahead.
So why we are more assertive in when we are saying reactive is that, for example, a typical fraud has happened in 2012. If we say, if the same similar fraud happened in 2015, means how we can understand? You have 3 years of
Correct,
time. You can diagnose it. You can diagnose the problem. You can find the tools. You can resolve the issue, and you can mobilize the and also create the awareness among the staff, among the customer if required, among the general public, whatever. Even you can also alert the government as to what steps are expected from government or regulator side. So these frauds have been happening from last maybe 2 decades, and they have intensified recently, where we are more equipped with more technology. See, now world is going with artificial intelligence, right? Machine learning, data science. So now the tools are like never before. Even the internet came like 20 to 30, 20 to 25 years back to India, but even then we were not equipped with these many tools. But the problem is, tools are there, but there is no competent staff, and there is no decision making in place. And the governance, the top level management is also kind of puppets to the government, and they always completely listen to the government. So yeah, this is a, we can say it's a multiple angle problem. But if banks are sincere enough, at least, see, what I feel is, all the improvements don't need the financial resources, I mean the monetary resources. Some improvements, some improvement and efficiency can be done just with some proper arrangements in place, proper adjustment in place. Like they in banks, if you take, no, the transfer process is very hectic. For example, you are a banker, for example, you are an officer in SBI, and you are more interested in forex services, and you have done a lot of certifications, and you really became expert in that, and you applied for transfer. That's to the higher ups. Sir, I want to get into foreign exchange department. That process will take so long. In between, you might get transferred to some other branch, and you might think of resignation also. So the transfer process is so hectic. A lot of red tapeism is there. You take a lot of paperwork. You take any small task, it has to be approved from higher ups, and there is a channel. So I think they have to get into agile methodology, right? I think you might be aware of agile methodology, which is mostly used in software industry. It is like anybody can do anything, and anything can be done anytime. I mean, the resources are just so beautifully arranged that just things will just keep moving without any issues. But in bank, no, it is mostly static. I mean, public sector bank especially, so they're mostly static. Today we have deployed systems. Up to another 5 years, till some big crisis happens, nobody will touch that system. Either that system is working or not, whether somebody hacked it or not. I mean, it will just go on. So because of all these issues, the outcomes are in like this.
I think so far we have fairly discussed a lot of points about the Indian banks and RBI, and I just have a observation to make on. Do you think, if supposing if RBI has been following some sort of inflation targeting approach over the last maybe 4 years, and it started in 2016. Even before that, they have been raising the interest rate, but reducing the cost of it was people thought it might improve inflation, but what happened is because of that, the interest rate to borrow has gone up. So cost of capital for industries gone went up, and that's why you have a lot of MSMEs on the borderline closing up. Even now that is the situation. Even in this situation, the government has planned on giving out loans and all of it's a loan type of stimulus. It's not a direct transport to the owner of MSME or whatever. It's more of a loan oriented stimulus. Don't you think this can affect the banks in a big way? And if this is the case, I'd just like to follow up with that. If this is the case, how do you deal with it? And in these times, what are the various opportunities available for banks to improve their business? So we start off with this, and then you can catch up with the opportunities. Over to you.
Yeah. So yeah, the onward lending for MSME might create some other problems. But only thing is, what I feel is banks, whatever government is pushing, banks should not listen to them fully, because banks have got some commercial interest, and they have to keep their balance sheet clean. They have to
Correct, correct.
go with their efficiency and all. So banks should not completely listen to the government. That is one thing. When whatever government says, they should not follow. So for that, they need independence. They need strong corporate government board on the place. So they need strong management. That is a different issue. And coming to the opportunities, yeah, still see, as we spoke already, no crisis will last forever. So slowly, I think business will start off once this some vaccine comes, or some alternative, whatever, some solution to the virus comes in. Business will start taking off. And also, government is also helping the other side, like they are relaxing the norms with respect to this onward lending for NBFCs. And RBI has given some moratorium, so that at least their NPAs sheet will not increase. Because if there is no moratorium, by this time, at least 2% of the loans would have become NPS. Maybe 1 or 2% easily would have become NPS.
Oh,
So that
oh.
is also a good thing for banks as well as customers. And the other thing is, as we spoke already, banks have to utilize the technologies. And also, now if you take our young talent in India, many people are now aspiring to work for banks. Many students, many youngsters are equipped a lot of techniques. People are doing MBAs, they're graduating in.
I think there's some issue with the net connection. Sorry for the interruption. We had some technical issues. Anjay is back with us. So yeah, you were talking about opportunities to various banks and how you want them to grow in a big way by making it a more the whole system to be more relaxed and all that. So in what is your before we wrap up the discussion in the final segment now, what do you think is the way ahead now, apart from whatever you have listed? Is there any other way you can think of for banks, apart from the HR and all the whatever you've quoted so far?
Yeah. So the one thing that comes to our mind is, maybe nowadays every company is having some data analysis and intelligence department.
Correct, correct.
So banks have got, I think they have some planning and strategy departments already, but they have to be aggressively loaded with the tools and techniques and the personnel who are good at intelligence, in the sense that they should be more proactive. They should try to predict the issues in the economy, either globally or in domestically. So for that, even we can bring in foreign personnel into the banks. We can pay them well, because nowadays, right, based on this wages also encourage the personnel. So yeah, I think in this discussion, I want to propose every bank should be there should be department of intelligence. Even in the regulators, I think regulators have already have got that kind of departments and things. But even every individual bank, you take SBI or private banks or other public sector banks, they should have this kind of departments which work for 24 by 7, which gather a lot of data either from regulators or from based on surveys where you can't get formal data. You should go to the field. You should get the data based on surveys, based on informal surveys, formal surveys, online surveys. And other thing is, even they can get the reviews from the public, what kind of
Hmm.
products they want to have. Because even customers, the thing is, some nowadays customers are ahead of the banking services. For example, when I was working in bank, customers used to come with they already know beforehand all the interest rates from different banks, and they used to come and tell me. If I tell something, wrong figure, they used to correct me. If I say that, sir, we are offering 9% interest rate on home loan, SBI is actually giving charging 10%, they used to say no, no, SBI is actually charging only 7.5. So nowadays customers are also good. We can get feedback from them what kind of products they want, what kind of relaxations we want. Because not all the customers are fraudsters, not all the customers are vigilants. So we have to go with those kind of agendas. Yes.
That's a very good proposal. I think, in my opinion, I think we should have it at maybe RBI level, where you have a overall for the whole country, maybe for the whole system, you can have something similar to IRS or whatever you have in civils. Similar, you can have a Indian Banking Intelligence Service, something like that, and maybe you can scale it up that way. If not for
Yes, yes.
banks, it can be also at a macro, nationwide level. So I'd like to add in my one
National,
point
maybe for
that
inflation.
uh,
Yeah.
so I just like to add in that
Yeah, even for, yes,
you wanted to add
sorry to
something. Go
interrupt.
ahead. Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
even for inflation, yes, yes, yeah, even for inflation targets, even for unemployment data capturing. So I think India is lagging in intelligence services. I think as far as security and defense issues are concerned, we are our government is doing really well. They are capturing the data, they are going ahead, so they are doing well. But as far as other economic issues or other financial micro level issues are concerned, I think we are not doing that great. For example, if you take Delhi riots, I think it's not a political debate, but even Delhi riots, if we have proper intelligence, we could have stopped. Maybe we are not very
Yes.
sure, but we could have stopped. We could have arrested the, the issue to some extent, if not the full extent. So in India, I think in India we have to get into aggressive modes as far as intelligence inputs are concerned. Whether you take macro indicators like this inflation or unemployment, GDP, whatever. Yeah, over to you.
So in the conclusion, I think we have reached conclusion. So far, after discussion so far, it's been very engaging. I'd like to just say my opinion in the as we before we wrap up. I think RBI has been following for from 2016. They have been following something called inflation targeting by amending the RBI Act and bringing in a monetary policy committee to monitor all the policies or what to know. They have a six-member monetary policy committee which overlooks the whole monetary policy, which frames policy as per the situation. So what is happening is because of the inflation targeting, where it's a narrow inflation targeting, there is no flexible. No, it's not a very easy thing to do. What I observed is during the period of inflation targeting, say from 2016 to 2019, uh, what was the expected curve in terms of inflation? If you take the CPI data, the ideal was we need to get it in a continuous slope, and then we can manage it in a lower level. So it can't be more than it has to be above 2%, not less. So it has to be somewhere around 2 to 4% between that. But what we saw is the data is actually taking a uptick. Now it's almost 7%. So actually, during the period of inflation targeting, inflation has actually gone up beyond. It has breached the 4 plus 2%. So if it's 7%, so I think this calls for a relook of or a review of the whole, inflation targeting framework, and I think it's time we did that. And adding to that, I'd just like to make one more point observation that I think we have a very high prime lending interest rate compared to other countries, be it China, be it Japan, be it USA. USA does not give any interest, any loan at not more than 2 to 3%. We are at least more than 9% and 10%, and we have not focused on that much. So I think that's a policy focus. We have to focus on that as well, and uh, that's the major. I think it's banks. If banks can recover, I mean, if economy can recover, so can banks. And if banks can also recover, then the economy can again come back to a better status, maybe 4%, 5% growth. Now we are going at -5. We have to catch up, and there's a lot of things to do. And Anjay has given us a very, very good perspective on the whole thing. I thank you for that. Thanks a lot for your time, Anjaya. And I heard that you're also going to, applying for all your PhDs and all that. I wish you the best of luck and all the success. And that's all. We have it for today, folks. Thanks for watching. It's been a very, very engaging session. Anjaya, you have anything to say?
th- thank you, Pawan. Thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me for the talk. Thank you.
So, viewers, that's the thing. Look carefully about your banks. Monitor the whole news properly. Understand the whole situation before you take any decision. So that's the final thing. And on that note, I leave it today. And it's been a very good talk today. And I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, this video, and please share it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Until next time. This is your host Pawan Kumar signing off.